Hello everyone. Thanks for coming. I would like to welcome to this session. This session is included within the activities of BeInternational Store 2020. And this session is going to be about the fears of the entrepreneurs when overcome a new venture. I know the fears quite well because I am an entrepreneur also. I have worked in a bank for 10 years, and then I decided to set my own startup with a couple of friends, and now we have a fintech working for some of the best big players of the financial sector here in Spain. So this session is going to be led by Nacho Marquez from Tickets to Europe. So I'm giving the word to his, and I hope you enjoy this session. Thank you.
So thank you, David, for presenting BeInternational Store, and thank you for having us. My name is Ignacio, and I will be the moderator of today's webinar about gamification and entrepreneurship, as David said. With me, I have Carmen, I have Pavel, and I have Filip, Gágor. I will kindly ask now all the speakers to introduce briefly their organization and also explain a little words their connection with the topic of game development and entrepreneurial learning. And I think that maybe Carmen, shall I start with you? What is the connection of your organization with this topic?
Sure, thank you, Nacho. Hello, everyone. My name is Carmen. Personally, I have an educational and research background in experimental psychology, but I'm collaborating with the youth NGO in southeast of Romania called Strop de Fericire, which means a drop of happiness in English. And the organization's connection with game is on multiple dimensions. So we use games a lot for team building and to build the connections between the community of volunteers. So there is a lot of board game nights and treasure hunts organized by youngsters for youngsters. But also we used simulation games, for example, to increase empathy towards disabled people. And also we are sometimes doing trainings for people in the formal learning system, like teachers or social workers, on how to include educational games in their practice.
Great. Pavel, I will continue with you, with Shokkin, Estonia. Can you give us a few words about your NGO?
Yeah, so I'm coming from Tallinn, Estonia, and I work as a freelance trainer for the last 9 years, and also for the last 5 years actively experiment with educational games and their design and their promotion, also within entrepreneurship education field and higher education. So represent also Shokkin Group, which is a youth organization that uses innovative approaches in youth work to engage young people quite highly in the active citizens position, but also in the position of starting up their own initiative and in the future business or a little enterprise.
Great, and I will finish with Filip. Last but not least, of course, Filip from Czech Republic and BeInternational.
Thank you very much. So my name is Filip, and I'm currently residing in Brno, Czech Republic. I also work as a freelance trainer, and on a local level also as a youth worker. And I represent an organization called BeInternational. Basically, in my daily work, I work a lot with the topics of game-based learning. How can games be used in education in general? Developing different methods that are revolving around games and gamification, and also dealing with a few other topics like intercultural learning, and also dealing with kind of active citizenship topic, which is pretty much connected to also taking the initiative and doing something for the community, which can be also seen as an entrepreneurial competence, let's say.
Great. after this small presentation and before diving more into the topic that brings us here, I would like also to highlight that if any of the viewers have any doubt or question, they could simply write it down on comment section on Facebook, or also if they are connected to Zoom, they can also type in there, and we will be a pleasure to solve at the end of this panel these small questions or doubts that you have. We are going to jump to the first question, and the question number one is a really simple question, right? But it really, I think, that establishes a border between regular games and educational games, and what is the difference. I would start asking our panelist Pavel also about what is an educational game and what makes a game educational.
Yeah, that is in a way simple question, but always an important one to take or answer in the beginning. So for me, or in my practice, an educational game is the one that you develop with a specific learning outcome in mind. So when you start not from, let's make a cool game that a lot of people would play, but you look at what should people learn, what should people understand, mostly what knowledge you would like to pass, what skill people would like to or should train or practice during the playing part, or also the what behavioral change or what attitude change we would like to see in our players. So do we want them to be more confident, more spontaneous, or let's say more fearless? And from that moment, you start developing an engaging activity. So a game that has, let's say, a mission to complete. It has the challenge, and it also has the fun factor, the engaging factor that people play and have fun with and want to kind of repeat again, or just get this experience that they will remember after many times. So basically for me, if you sit down with a specific learning goal in mind, develop a game, test it, and you see that game, after it is played and tested, gives this thought, then it is an educational game, basically.
That's a great answer, I think. I don't know if Carmen or Filip want to add something here. Carmen, maybe
I think sorry, Filip, did you want to go? So I think I have not a different opinion, but I think that any game is educational if we see education in terms of learning, so you learn something from it. But I guess games are educational in a more informal way, so maybe the learning is not necessarily highlighted. So it's just that you learn, maybe you develop a skill when playing a video game, but it's not that you afterwards reflect and think, oh, I developed that skill. Whereas what makes a game an educational game, when you can use this phrase, I think it's when it's coming with a framework. So what happens before, during, or after the game is kind of facilitated. So it's with an intention of learning or leading the learning in a direction, or kind of structuring and highlighting the learning, because playing a game is not enough. So it's an experience players go through, but then it's the reflection afterwards that actually kind of emphasizes the learning.
Great. And Filip, do you want something to add here also?
Yeah, Carmen, you took those words from my mouth actually, so thank you for that. But maybe I would like to connect what Pavel said and what Carmen elaborated upon. Yeah, the best approach to making an educational game is indeed to have the idea in mind, the educational kind of background in mind already in the beginning, and the reflection is something that's important. Tetris itself is not an educational game, even though by playing we might understand some, or we might learn subconsciously some maybe logical things, something connected to coordination and so on. With simple puzzles, it might be similar, but by itself, it's not an educational game. We can, however, turn it eventually into something more educational if we work with the players further, and if we try to extract the learning points that might have happened during the playing even such a simple thing. So yeah.
I think that everything is on the table now. We will move to the next question. Actually, another question that we should ask is, what is entrepreneurial learning, right? Because we are talking about games and also about entrepreneurship, but what is entrepreneurial learning? Carmen, I will start with you now. What are your thoughts about it?
So I think entrepreneurial learning relates a lot to a set of skills or competencies to turn an idea you have into action. And research often describes it as an experiential learning process, as an experiential process. So it's a lot to do with the process rather than a theory-only learning. And it's about how experiences are then connected with something you do differently.
Right. Filip, what are your thoughts about this? What is entrepreneurial learning?
Well, with entrepreneurial learning as a concept, I'm personally from my practice in non-formal education, I'm used to work with the key competencies, which is like a set of competencies that was defined for lifelong learning, and one of them is actually the entrepreneurial competence or entrepreneurship competence. Yeah, right. And it's something that's, as I understand it and as I work with it, something connected with not entrepreneurship just in the narrow idea of starting and running a business for money, which is something that most people associate entrepreneurship with, but it's basically also connected to developing the capacity of a person to see an opportunity and to take the opportunity or to take an action, and to most importantly turning simple ideas into actions, to not just cherish them and develop them, but to try them and to maybe fail, but to learn something from this process of ideating and trying. And it encompasses plenty of different skills, or also attitudes inside. Anything, it can be anything from social skills to being able to work with budgets, to being able to plan and analyze and taking logical steps in order to achieve something. So entrepreneurial learning and especially entrepreneurial competence is all these things for me personally. Great.
Pavel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that entrepreneurship education, as we see, divides in two main directions. One of them is basically the teaching or the learning of starting a new business. So what should you know? What should you know nationally in terms of the legal frameworks, juridical frameworks, and basically how you can plan your profit and loss sheets and do all the financial, a lot of the practical skills. So that's one aim of entrepreneurship education, is basically starting a new business, a successful one, and being able to assess the risks and all the practical things that come with owning a business. And the second thing is development of an entrepreneurial mindset, which is very strongly connected to what Filip was also referring to, this competence level of things that are not only useful when you open a business. It's the skill set that is useful when you want to be a good learner, when you want to be a good worker, an employee, or where you want to be good at social initiatives and running projects in the nonprofit sector. So it's all about the skills, managerial skills, teamwork skills, and further competences that we all, let's say, expect to have in people that work with us in a team.
Yeah, that's it. Like as Filip said, also, it's not just to make money, it's also to have impact in the society. To this also can be social entrepreneurship, right? This thing that is really trendy now, and I think that it will continue. The next question, the question number 3, the aim is to look for this solid bond, right, between entrepreneurial learning and games. So how games can develop entrepreneurial learning, and could we have fun while we are learning and playing? So I would start now with Filip. So what are your thoughts? What do you think about it?
Thank you very much. And I would maybe start with why game is such an interesting and popular medium.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the reasons why this is true is because game creates and provides you with an interactive environment. It throws you into some kind of simulated environment where you are able to ideally make decisions, and everything you do has an impact on for example, the story you are following in a game, or each of your actions ideally has some kind of consequence. When we compare it to different mediums like movies and books, from which we can also use to learn from, right? Game itself is so unique because it gives the player the opportunity to influence it and to experiment with how the actions will eventually turn out and what are the impacts. So first thing I would like to point out is that the ability of a game to provide interactive space for trying out new things for the learner is something that, for example, books or documentaries are not able to. So that's something I would like to open with. And if anyone feels like elaborating more, then I give the word.
Perfect. Carmen, what do you think?
So I think, very much in line with what Filip said. And I think thinking of entrepreneurial learning as an experiential learning process, then games can totally provide this space to experience something and to learn something from felt experience. Also, something that I will talk about later more in depth is about providing a safe space to approach uncertainty and to fail safely, and then kind of see failure as a necessary thing for learning, because in games it's always the case that you try, fail, try again. Then failure is very much needed. So I think that's a very important connection, why games are really nicely matching with entrepreneurial learning.
Pavel, and you, what do you think?
Yeah, I would add that games provide you exactly with this opportunity of trying things out and applying different strategies. And same with starting a path of a young entrepreneur, or starting to play a new game. You kind of enter a new world that you're not sure of, and most likely nobody ever prepared you for it. Yeah, there's very little things that are given in formal education. There's very little skills and knowledge and sort of these motivation that we receive from our everyday life to start an own enterprise, let's say, especially at the earlier age. And here is the place in a game that you can adjust to any, let's say, influences that come, or any challenges that come from inside of the game. You need to be flexible, you need to try different strategies, you need to risk, and you inevitably will fail, and then you can risk several times and you can replay it again and again. And same with starting a business, and looking at a lot of colleagues and friends who start their own business. That's how it is. They open something that is absolutely unknown. They start testing with different ideas. Some things work, some things fail, and they, let's say, they retry until they find something that kind of is working best for them, or finding their own style and so on, when it comes to, let's say, these small entrepreneurial initiatives that people start around.
Do you see that connection actually, like with young people, that they are playing these kind of games, and then maybe they are more likely to start a business? What do you think?
I wouldn't say that game is like, a game is the answer that everyone will play something and then become a businessman. No, I would say conscious playing and putting it inside of a curriculum, or finding people who are interested to start something, and playing specific games in connection with real life practical cases and work that they need to do, boosts your skills. Yeah, so you can always then relate that, I had this game where I needed maybe to pitch a business idea, and people laughed because I did this, this, and this, yeah, or people smiled because I was so positive, and I was so happy because I really liked the name. So that's what I should do in reality. So I would say it's kind of not just you play a game, you become an entrepreneur, but if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to try out these things, you can engage in playing board games in general, or games in general, but specifically finding these good entrepreneurship educational games.
The next question actually is really connected with this. And I deeply believe that everything in life has positive and negative. And this also includes when we talk about learning methods. So the next question is, what are the advantages and disadvantages of game learning methods? And I'm going to start with Filip. What do you think? What are the pros and the cons?
I will maybe start with the disadvantages, actually. And the main disadvantage of every simulated environment, as it goes in science, in experimenting, it's simplified. You cannot include every possible variable and every possible outcome into a simulation. And that's, after all, what games usually are. They are simplified simulation of some, for example, real life situations or real life processes. And the main disadvantage is that this is limiting in a way, because then we cannot cover every input and every outcome that might happen because of our decisions inside of a simulated environment. So yeah, it can never be perfect. That's one of the disadvantages.
So Carmen, I give you now the voice to give your experience to bring to the panel. What do you think?
Will I continue with disadvantages or go more positive? Let's continue with the negative part. So then we can brighten. I actually had this oversimplification also on my list, but I would also say that games are very time consuming to design and pilot and to actually implement. Once you have a final one, there are a lot of resources that you need. I mean, it depends on how easy the game is to be facilitated, but usually for a good learning experience, I think it takes a long time for that. So I think you really need to be sure that the game is the method you need for a learning objective, because I wouldn't advocate that games are the best for everything, but they are more likely to be complementary with other things. So
yeah, we see that actually, like games that you play in less than 1 hour and maybe took 100 years to develop, right? Pavel, what do you think?
Yeah, I also had the idea that it takes a lot of time to develop, or it's also to learn and play. And it's also kind of hard to find a good amount of good games that kind of be very, helpful, but at the same time, open and easy for you to learn how to play and to practice. So it's also something rare. That's why we have, we'll say, a few companies maybe providing some of these games and providing it as a training package. So as Carmen said, they're not like standalone. Same in the educational game sphere, that mostly it comes together with some additional training and additional learning. So that's also like a disadvantage thing, that people sometimes perceive a game that something comes in a box, it's a package, I will learn so much, but without still a guide, let's say, a game master or facilitator, trainer, it's hard to get this result. And another disadvantage I would point out is also that they are often not taken seriously. So people say, okay, quit playing games and go actually do something. Quit playing games, go and register your business. That why are you wasting time?
Yeah.
And that is something that makes also people who want to maybe learn something through games or are kind of not sure, they don't consider them as a credible source, let's say in the beginning. But then when they start playing, of course, that's the main advantage is when you start actually, playing the game, or you say total, okay, yeah, let's try it fully. You get into a new world where you can be trying so many things, you can experiment with different strategies, and then you kind of feel this embodied fulfillment, that it's not just I learned it and it makes sense, but I felt it and it makes sense. Or on the other hand, I felt that this what I did didn't make any sense. So the advantage of a game that it's an embodied experience, you can try it fully and you feel it emotionally, and that stays for a longer time with you. You see how you influence others, so then you can also learn from that, and how your behavior, your strategy, or strategy of others influence you. That also helps a lot with one of the main things in entrepreneurship is also the personal communication or person-to-person communication. So I would say that's one of the biggest advantages also.
Great. After this answer, we are going to close the first module, right, when we dive into this topic. And after having this general introduction, and now with more clear information and knowledge, of course, it is time now to ask some questions to the speakers, more focused on their own expertise in the field of learning, gamification, and entrepreneurship. We are going to start with Carmen. Carmen, as psychologist, has expertise on the topic of fear of failure and how educational games can help to overcome these emotions. So, Carmen, please tell us more about this, how games work on this in emotions.
Okay. First of all, just a disclaimer, I'm not an expert in fear of failure. I wouldn't claim that. But I'm thinking for this topic to take a bit the fear as an emotion and just introduce it, and then to talk about fear of failure in entrepreneurship and in games, because these are two environments where we work a lot with failure and fear of failure, and the approach is different, but it can be brought together. So first of all, this is not new information. I think everyone knows that all emotions we are able to experience are useful and have a function, and fear is one of them. So fear is useful in the sense that it prepares us for fight or flight. It just heightens our senses, our awareness. But then the flip side of the coin is that sometimes it can stop us from doing actions that we want.
Yeah, that's it.
So when I did a bit of research on what fears entrepreneurs experience, so both people who are already entrepreneurs or people who are thinking to become, fear of failure was one of the main fears that came up. So I just chose to focus on this. And even if it sounds like one thing, research usually talks about fear of failure in different domains. So it kind of has different roots. And one of them is the financial domain. I think no wonder. So the fear of failure of your going, bankruptcy, loss of money, and not being able to support your family or yourself. Then it's the psychological domain. So when talking about fear of failure in entrepreneurship, people might be afraid that they might experience unpleasant emotions. They might suffer from depression, they might lose the support of others or even disappoint other people around. So this is also something they might fight with. And also there's the career domain. So people might be afraid to venture into this entrepreneurial path because they might think if they fail, their peers are more advanced than them. So it's this career damage that is looked at like, okay, my business fails, then I failed in my career kind of thing. Then there's another part of research that looks at fear of failure as socially situated, which means that it's interpreted. So it's something that we internally evaluate, that I'm afraid that I would fail, but then this is something very much interpreted in the environment we operate. So how people around you or people you have to work with, or the views that you've been influenced to, how they see failure. Because if failure is something not socially acceptable, then you're less likely to engage in these activities where you might fail as an entrepreneur. But then there is something interesting. So entrepreneurs have been asked about fear of failure and how it impacts their behavior, and there has been research showing that it can act as a motivator. So being afraid that you might fail, it actually motivates you to seek more opportunities, to be more adaptable. So I'm not saying that this is how we should act out of fear, but I think if it can bring the stress level to it's kind of healthy stress if it's managed well, and if it's not just going into being way too stressful. But I think it can boost a bit your initiative in the moment. So I wouldn't say fear of failure is something to get rid of, not at all, because it can be useful actually, as long as it's managed in a healthy way. So now moving on to the game environment, it's quite generally known. It depends on the game, but failure is a sign of progress. So when playing a game, it's a lot of trial and error. You have to fail until you get it to work, right? So failure is not at all seen as a bad thing. So actually in a game, you do it and you engage again and again. And although you know this will happen, you still start playing a game. So it doesn't lose the fun component because of this. Of course, the reality, the consequences and the stakes are very different from starting a business and failing than playing a game and failing. Of course, I'm aware of that. But I think the connection between the two is that games, so educational games that are facilitated in a way to highlight this learning, provide a space to fail and process the failure in a healthy way. So kind of not fail and leave it there, but take the learning out of it and being able to extract the learning. And this is a skill that you can transfer into real life. So you can, if you do this in a game, you can do it in your own life. Okay, I failed at this. What am I learning from it? What will I do differently? So I think the take-home message, just to wrap it up, is not that games will make people fearless entrepreneurs and will just guarantee success and nothing like this. But I think it just provides the space to approach uncertainty and failure in a different way, provides the social context where failure is accepted, encouraged, and seen as a learning opportunity. So as cliche as this is kind of I would like to end with this, that feel the fear, but do it anyway.
Yeah, great. So go for it. That's really. Now we are gonna jump to the other sport, like Filip Gágor. And the topic that he is going to develop is critical approaches to entrepreneurship through games. So, Filip, tell us more about this.
Well, I will. As it was mentioned before, a game itself won't make you an entrepreneur. However, it can very well work as a complement, as something complementary to different entrepreneurship courses or to some learning designs and so on. And I would like to talk to you and to the audience about one very specific method that is connected to one of the topics, which is quite salient, let's say, and connected with entrepreneurship and business in general, and that's discrimination as one of the things. Because we have of course there are the laws against discrimination on workplace. Of course we have the structural inequalities in society, and someone as an entrepreneur or a business owner, businesswoman, businessman, they also have this responsibility and yeah, the responsibility to take the ethical side of the business into consideration, and to respect all the rules that are there and so on, and learning about these laws or these different situations connected to discrimination and to inequalities and impact of the business or of the workers on others is something that is very difficult to be learned through reading, or to be learned through lectures. And yeah, I have a very kind of practical approach how games can actually be used to support the critical approaches to how I'm running my business, how am I behaving on the workplace, and so on. And it can help people to think about the work ethics, to think about the decisions they are making, to think about the outcomes of these decisions to others, and how to basically run a workplace which is more inclusive, more equal, and generally hopefully better place. In 2016, I believe, we developed one role-playing game / simulation, which was tackling the topic of inequalities in the world and of discrimination. It was taking place actually in a simulated workplace, or several workplaces, where the players entered the game with the knowledge that they belong to some kind of group in the world, and their task is to go to one of their workplaces, then to second one, to the third one, work and work and work every day, and to eventually earn enough money to buy a ticket to holiday. The players were entering the game without the knowledge that they found out later, that each of the groups they were belonging to had different levels of discrimination on the workplaces. So, for example, the strongest group was making a lot of money as compared to the others, while they had to do less work, and the weakest ones, yeah, they got really quickly frustrated when they realized that they have to kind of simulate the working process for a longer time, and basically didn't earn almost anything. And the players were finding out about the rules just as they were playing, and in this simulation, they had more or less a lot of freedom to decide what they will do. And I've seen like maybe 10-15 different outcomes from already 1 hour into the game, people organizing a revolution and throwing all the money they earned into a pool, and refusing to do anything else. I experienced a strike. I experienced people stealing from each other. I experienced a marriage, actually, where two players decided they will marry together, and this will kind of make the situation better for one of the players. I experienced actually a charity where the strongest group decided they will give the money to a lot of money they earned to the weakest group, which refused it as the blood money. And once I actually experienced very nicely entrepreneurial approach, where one of the players who belonged to the strongest group earned so much money that he started his own workplace and was paying the people equally, not kind of depending on what they to which group they belonged. Interestingly, when we finish the simulation, which takes usually around 2 hours, we gather the people again, the players in the circle. We give them the time to step outside of their roles, whether they were strong or very much discriminated, and we talk about what happened there. and what is especially the relation to real life. And once we had a player she was in the strongest group, and she was very much surprised that there was any kind of discrimination happening, because she didn't notice anything during those 2 hours as a person who was who had it comfortable, which was really nice. And there is a way how we can use the frustration, which definitely builds up there with the playing, how we can use the very strong experience to bring the learning points and to kind of relate it to real life, and to eventually think about what we can do better in our own workplaces, in our regular life, or even in our way how we are running the businesses. How do we provide equal opportunities, for example, to people who might be applying for the jobs, or how, if there are any wage disparities and what are the reasons for them, and so on. So I think very important thing that games can bring to entrepreneurship is to make the people who are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs, or who are already running businesses, to think about the social aspect, or about the work ethics, let's say. And I think this can be a very beneficial part of running a game or simplifying a life situation, to make them live through the experience that some other people or some colleagues or workers might be going through. So yeah, that's for the partially critical approach. I could talk about this for hours, but I think my time is up already. So yeah.
Great, Filip. Wow, so you have a small world there. Wow, it's amazing actually. Pavel, last but not least, of course, would you explain us, based on your huge experience actually, how to use these entrepreneurial learning games, and maybe give us and the audience some really concrete examples?
Sure. So I think, yeah, as we already said, there's very few things that teach you entrepreneurship at a theoretical level, and that it's very often found boring and not so close to reality. So we find games as one of the most practical approaches, and I guess in my life I was also pretty lucky to be learning a lot through games, because I've been studying at an experiential learning entrepreneurial program in high school, and also I did my university degree in marketing, and we were also at a pilot gamified university course, which was really cool. So a few things of how it kind of brings out the motivation inside of a player. In my university, we had a big simulation of an office. We had something that we called the business pods, where a group of around 30 people would be together going through practical exercises and practical challenges every Monday and Tuesday. It was a lot based on role play games. It was a lot based on fake pitches, where we needed to come up with a solution for a problem, let's say, or to come up with a service or a product and propose it to potential investors. Sometimes it was also the local entrepreneurs being involved. And there was a few key things that we saw, was that lectures in the university were voluntarily. If you didn't want to go, you didn't have to go. But then we saw inside of this gaming environment that if we go and we listen at the lectures, we get engaged to the seminars, then in these practical games, we can be better than others. So we got this competition that started, playing a big role also. No, I'm going to go for the lecture. I'm going to do the extra mile. I'm going to do some research because I want to win. So that is something that definitely brings out in students when you use games, or in young people, is this competitive part that you would like to win. And for that, you are willing to go the extra mile. So this is something if you have a team and you are starting a business with and you want them to be better, you can be thinking about a competitive aspect of gamifying their work or your common learning together to be a better team or to be a better entrepreneur, finding these ways. And then the second thing that I found very cool, and that's also what happens in all the games, is people are coming with different skills. Same we had in university. The course was the general business for the year, even though somebody studied marketing, somebody studied finance, somebody studied administration. We all would be in these teams, in these pods together with different skills, because I don't need to be a big expert in finance if I'm doing marketing bachelor degree. So maybe I could be using the learning from a peer, who can really be telling me some of the practical things that he or she finds important and smart. So that is the same with games. If you play educational games, if you play any games with different types of people, you learn how to communicate with them. You learn how to read what they are trying to say or trying to read and scan the emotions that they're having. And that is one thing that boosts you as a future entrepreneur, because the human factor is huge. The part of you communicating with others, the part of you understanding what people might be thinking and feeling. It goes also across cultures, across countries when going to international business. And the more you play with different people, the more you will be better at also negotiating, the more you will be better at pitching and telling, sparking people with other ideas of yours. Then another thing that is cool or how to use entrepreneurial learning games is also for idea generation and practice of your creative muscle, because ideas are not just born, or very rarely are born under the shower. They are most likely are born with you thinking a lot about it, trying, playing with them, trying to write down as many different ideas. And then when your brain is on that level, or if your brain is working in that direction, something good will come. So also games for idea generation is another thing to be using. And I would like to also maybe introduce a few games that anyone can use and go. They were developed under one project called Game On, which was done under European Commission's grant. And we had two games specifically I would like to share. One of them is called Pitch Perfect. It's a game that is all about practicing pitching skills and practicing your creative thinking. The idea is very simple, and the game is extremely simple. You have two types of cards. You have one type of cards, which is target groups. So it teaches people to look at different target groups and what they might be interested. You can have teenagers, you can have punk rockers, you can have babysitters, or you can have professional pensioners, anything. And then you have also different needs that these target groups have. It can be, how to get a date, or how to get a raise, or how to be better organized. And you need to match the target group and their need with a specific idea that you come up, and then you need to pitch to others. So this is a game that allows people to really, in just a few minutes, come up with ideas or connect and emphasize with a target group, think what their need really is and how you can satisfy that need, come up with a product or a service, and in a few minutes also be able to pitch it to others with confidence, with basically your full energy, so that others can invest into. And this is this very little and simple simulation that we have created for people to really practice as much as they want idea generation and pitching. And after using these games repeatedly, we also feel, we see how people are, easily creating ideas, business ideas when it comes to, or people become also more flexible with matching things that are at first sight are maybe like, oh, that is too strange or too crazy for me. But if you've been, finding a product or a service for lonely pensioners to get a first date, then you probably can find a little product or a service to satisfy some very specific need that is there in your community. So that is sort of one of the game that people can use. Just download, print it, and use it to really practice the idea generation. And then another game we also had this been called, it is called Copper Bottomed, which is a game that is simulating competitive, competition amongst several firms and the work of managers of those firms. And that is a game where basically you need to really adapt to an ever-changing environment, because when you play, your starting things are different, the way your other co-players are making their moves, what they are spending money on, what they are bidding for is always changing. And this is one of those games where you can really try to either go towards social entrepreneurship model more, or you go for trying to expand and become one of the most popular products and see how that will go, or you try to build a stronger team of employees. And every time you play this game, you can go for different strategies, and based on how others will behave, you will always, of course, get a different result, which in a way closely simulates the market environment. And in this game, there is no rule that says you cannot make coalitions or you can, cooperate with each other at certain points, or it doesn't say that you cannot just go full on war and then see how others will treat you. And that is also, let's say, one of these games that are simulating the way, in a simplified way, as we also spoke before, but the very basic business processes. So for someone who wants to, understand a bit more, get to know maybe the definitions in English or in other languages, right, and then know how to use them, you can also be using this game. Yeah? And with the more you understand about basic business processes, the more you can play this game and see how your results will change or not. And I would finish, I guess, with that is the idea of you use entrepreneurial games to literally try as many different strategies as you can, fail, and then see what doesn't make you fail that much. It's also about learning from these mistakes and thinking, what will I do next time? Same as when you are starting any sort of initiative, profitable, non-profit one. And it's also about building confidence. So these games, when you, after which you can say, okay, yeah, more confident with these terms, with these conditions for these processes. And also it's huge at getting your mind more flexible and being adaptable to the ever-changing situations. Because as we also see nowadays in real life, in the past half a year, there are businesses that are changing their models, and they are growing, and they are like surprising, and they are those who are not ready or able to or willing to adapt to new realities, and they are not really doing so well. So I would say use entrepreneurial learning games, ones that we just shared with you, but also use them for a specific, for a specific aim of practicing, getting confidence, and really bending your mind.
Great, Pavel. Awesome. I know that they are asking where to download the games on Facebook. I will put the link. Is gameonyouth.info, right?
Yeah, you can put the link to the download, and the cool thing is that the rules are also in Galician, and they're in Spanish, yes, and they're in Russian, and in Polish, and Swedish, and Greek, and other languages.
Are in proud Galician also. Now it's time to questions. We are in perfect time. We have two questions. One is for Pavel directly. is Pavel. Do you think there is a specific age group in which the use of educational games has a bigger impact or is especially meaningful?
I would say there is a group with whom using educational game is easier. That's younger people. Of course, when you start with, I would say 15 to 25 is my favorite group to play games with, because these people already understand the power of games. Yeah, they find that it can be something serious, but also something fun, and they kind of give in, and they are ready to see what happens, and they really live through it. And I would say people older than 20, people who graduate and get their first jobs or second jobs, they become more and more difficult to play games with if they are not doing it themselves on a, often, let's say, because then they are more skeptical and they do not feel so comfortable with fully giving in and unleashing yourself. They very often use this beautiful shield of, yeah, but it's just a game, I don't really behave like this in real life. And it's like, yeah, then you cannot get the full effect of a game.
Children knows more about this, right? And the next question that we have, and the last one, because we are close to 7 and we have more activities in Point App Store, is for Carmen and Filip. You can jump in. The question is, what about developing educational board games aiming to develop competences from workers in big enterprises? So what about developing educational board games for workers of a big enterprise? What do you think?
Yeah, if I can go for it, my answer would be it's possible. The thing is that, yeah, defining whenever developing an educational game, it's very important to think about several things, and two of them, the most main ones, who is actually the target group. Okay, so we might have a worker of a big enterprise, yeah, but who is the worker? Especially if it's a big enterprise, there are many different positions, many different layers, and many different tasks that people should have, or many different skills and also knowledge and attitudes that they should possess. So my tip, if you want to develop an educational game for workers of big enterprises, you should very much think about for whom especially you want to do it. Who is this target group who you want the game to be played with. And the second thing is that also the word competencies in that question. Yeah, competencies of workers of big companies. What exact competencies? Once you already have the specific worker of the specific company, knowing what especially this person needs to learn, what would make his or her work better, more efficient, or what would develop some specific skill or some specific attitudes towards work, then you can start developing it. The first step always is to think about who is your player and what exact competencies you want them to develop through the game. So I would say, yeah, it is possible. What about it? Go for it, but always think about who is it for and why are you doing it.
Carmen?
Yeah, I would end very shortly. So I totally agree with what Filip said. And also when you said big enterprise, word came to me, mega game. I don't know if you know what mega games are. Look it up. They are super cool. And I think they're good to simulate dynamics on a bigger level. So they are usually played over one day, some type of simulation games actually. But yeah, it's a specific type of games. And I would see it appropriate if you want to look at the dynamics of different positions in an enterprise, for example, if it's a bigger company.
Great. We have another question actually, but we are not gonna have time. We are gonna try to solve it on Facebook. Maybe later we can talk, the three of us, to try to give a solution. Thank you. What can I say? It was a pleasure. It was great information, great knowledge, great content, and great people. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you, Filip. And thank you, Pavel. And thank you also, of course, PontApp Store for supporting this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget to play.
Mhm.